World War One, World War Two. That's enough. He
Yeah.
said no mas. Unfortunately, it led to a whole bunch of situations where maybe, damn, honestly, we're gonna have to pause
Really?
that. Some gunshots outside.
I don't think that was gunshots. Was that gunshots? Oh, let's talk about Nayib Bukele, the president of El Salvador, and what he's currently doing in El Salvador.
What's he doing, Josh?
Uh, he's doing a lot of things, man.
Well, first of all, who is he for our audience that may not be familiar, and also for your host who is not familiar with?
So Nayib Bukele is the current president of El Salvador. He's been the president since, if I'm not mistaken, I think 2019. I think he's due for re-election next year, actually. Hopefully he gets reelected. Um, Unfortunately, there's only like 2 terms that a president could um, basically serve. But yeah, that's basically it. He's a president. He's I think he's modernizing El Salvador, especially since in 2021 he made it legal for Bitcoin to actually be considered tender, um, legal tender. So I mean, it was the first nation actually worldwide to do that. I'm not sure if that was a good move. Probably for the future, yes, but not right now because crypto crashed and stuff. But he has been averaging out, I think. So he's been buying in at this price as well. So, but yeah, that's Nayib Bukele. Now to talk about his achievements, from what I've seen, from what I've studied on, he's currently decreased the crime rate by I think 56% in one
Year over
year.
year? Nice.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy, right? And unheard of, especially in Latin America. He has been criticized though by presidents like the president of Colombia. They're saying that, the approach he's taking is inhumane because what he's doing is that he's arrested all the gang members or assumed um, gang members. From what I've seen in the videos, I mean, they're all tatted up, and of course, there's always going to be casualties. It is what it is. It happens in war. I mean, it is a war if you think about it, war against, crime. But yeah, man, I've heard that the rate, the crime rate has decreased. And just recently, I was reading the news and I saw that he's actually trying to pass a bill next week to uh get rid of capital gains taxes on any corporation that wants to basically I think it has to be it was a list. It was a software company, basically a technology company. So he's trying to attract, I guess, big tech to El Salvador.
Is he trying to attack, or is he trying to attract the like international companies to come to El Salvador, or is he trying to promote like economic stimulus from
Yeah, I think
within
he's trying. I
El
think he's trying to do
Salvadoran?
both, but I think predominantly what he's trying to do is that he's trying to attract foreign companies because he's getting rid of capital gains for international companies as well. So I'm not sure if he's giving an incentive, like maybe credits in some way for actual, innovators that are actually from El Salvador. That'll be kind of good, right? To promote within versus, attracting foreign talent. Maybe there's talent right there. But yeah, that's that's what he's doing.
So how's he being like? Well, what do you think are some of the primary motivations behind this? Do you think he's more so of a populist, as like are his constituents asking for this, or is this his own kind of plan, in your opinion?
Damn. I think I think this might be his own plan because unless there's a strategist behind everything, I don't know, doing some sort of strategic planning. I'm sure he has his own team that he consults with. But from what I've seen, it seems like the majority of the thought process and the things that are being passed are coming from him. And I mean, you could check online. He has a huge social media presence, and he kind of like, from what I've seen in recent speech that he wants to no longer depend on other countries, right? He wants to become partners with first world co instead of being a third world country. He wants to be a first world country. So he's trying to also develop the infrastructure within El Salvador as well. So he's been looking into different, green energy as well. I haven't seen him implement anything. It's just like, just talks of it. Also, there's which is really interesting. And actually, some of my friends, international friends, I should say, have talked to me about this, how they're already in the process of creating this town. It's going to be called Bitcoin City. It's going to be in the
Yeah,
West
I've heard of that.
Coast.
What is the point of Bitcoin City?
So Bitcoin City, it's supposed to be. I think it will be because he has blueprints, and they already started constructing it, and he already got funding for it, and he's actually like selling plots of land. So if anyone's interested, I'll put in the link below in the description where you could basically, if you're interested in um purchasing land or something in El Salvador. But yeah, so it's supposed to be like a crypto town where everything's going to be paid through, cryptocurrency. Um, not only that, it's meant to promote also the Pacific Ocean. So they supposedly El Salvador has really good it's good for surfing. So it's one of the best places to go surfing. And so it's supposed to be like a touristic area. It's supposed to attract, tourists, and hopefully help the economy.
Interesting. Let's see, what else can we ask about this?
What?
Let's see, what else can we ask about this? Split this into another video.
Oh, um, we could talk about the history and like what happened, I guess, and how they no longer want to be considered like a colony. I mean, they are independent, but like the whole like if you look at the speech that Nayib basically talks about in I think it was last week. Actually, he comes out with the speech every week. He had a bunch of world leaders in this meeting. I'm not sure what the meeting was about, but he basically talks about how he wants to be partners. He no longer wants to be considered a colonized, influenced country, right? He's like, we are, Salvador, we're independent. And also they're getting a lot of heat on human rights because of how he basically, he arrested, don't quote me on this, but it's probably close to 40,000 prisoners or something. He's actually in the process of like transferring 2,000 prisoners each week in a new prison that he built, a new facility. And supposedly it's the biggest prison in Latin America. And so yeah,
Is
getting a
it a
lot of heat.
privately held?
That I do not
Is it
know.
a privately held system?
I don't know. I don't know if it's privately held. That's something I have to look into. Um, I think it's not. I think it's public. I think the government built it, but based on how the jail system works over there, it's kind of crazy. So this jail complex is basically, secure and supposedly they don't have corrupt, cops and all this stuff going on. But a few months ago, before they built this prison, the way things work down there is that the gangsters basically run the jails down there, which is insane. Like they have access to like, prostitutes, they have access to drugs, they have access to good food, because they're able to get, visitors that come in and they basically were, exploiting, citizens and things like that. And they would also bribe cops, right? Because they would have such a huge influence where they would target the cop's family. That's why when you see all the videos, they're always covering their face. It's kind of like Mexico. You see how, the cops cover their face just to hide their identity because they're afraid that there could be repercussion from, the gangsters, or in Mexico, the cartels. Same shit, gangsters, crime, drugs. But yeah, so it's crazy how he's trying to transfer and take away the power away from from the criminals. He also he there's they say that he negotiated with MS-13, and I think the other one's called South 18. It's like two rival gangs and stuff, and MS-13 originated in the USA, and then they kind of like deported all the criminals back to El Salvador, so it was kind of detriment, to the society down there. So yeah, man, it's the way he's approaching things is that he kind of like threatened the leaders, right? The leaders that aren't in jail. They're like, hey, if you want to make sure that your bosses that are locked up eat, then stop killing people and stuff. And another interesting statistic is that I think he has not had any murders in 100 days or something like that, which is crazy because El Salvador used to be the capital of murders at one point of the world. So, um,
How much of that do
seems
you
like
think
it's working.
is? How much do you that? Sorry to step on your line, but how much of that do you think is an actual drop in the murder rate versus a drop in reporting? If I don't report
Ooh,
that there's any murders happening, how do we know that any murders
yeah.
happened?
Yeah, I don't know how they like I don't know if they have like some sort of like,
Like
business
Census
intelligence
Bureau.
like Tableau or something, I don't know how modern they are if they could just run like queries and I'm not sure if they're reporting everything, as well. Like I don't know how well the documentation is. But yeah, it's I mean, I would like to think they're probably off, maybe. Off meaning that
Underrepresenting.
they're yeah, underrepresenting, yeah. I hope. If not, then from what I've seen, I mean, I'm not there, so from what I've seen and what I've seen on social media as well, it's like people, and also people that I've seen that actually live there, that are commenting, on the videos and stuff. They're like, hey, crime has gone down. I feel safer. I'm able to go outside without being extorted. What they used to do, another technique that they used to do, which is really, really like it's like super messed up, is that they would send a kid knock on your door and basically ask you for money, right? Like, hey, if you don't pay up your tax, your monthly tax, your weekly tax, we're gonna shoot down your house or burn it down and stuff like that. And the reason they would, utilize a child is because like, what are you gonna do? You're gonna hurt a child and stuff. So it's like it's a cowardly way of,
A
extorting
shakedown.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically. And so, of course, if they didn't pay their taxes, they would, you can't depend on the police. So they would, they would have to pay the taxes. But from what I've seen on the comments and the news articles that are going on, it seems like that's gone now, man. Like it's actually safe to go out. So, um, which is good.
So you mentioned this before, but to your knowledge, like, does El Salvador have any term limits, or is this guy positioning to be, the strongman type and
Oh
be
yeah.
president forever?
So that's kind of crazy, right? Because yeah, right now they only have a two-term limit. Um, and like he's doing a good job, right? But the thing is, what if the people agree and are like, you know what, let's alter the Constitution or amend something, right? And maybe make him a permanent leader of El Salvador. Or if it goes the other way, right? What if his two terms are over, a new administration comes in with a new plans, new ideology, new everything, and kind of destroys everything that he built, then the country goes back to like the way it was, then what, right? So, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think there's any based on, history, based on what you've seen going on in other countries, like what do you think would happen if they actually make him a permanent leader of El Salvador? Based on what I've told you of Nayib and based on what you've seen in history, because
Yeah,
history tends to repeat itself. So,
there's definitely an argument for the strongman type, where in a situation of disarray, I can imagine that there are some serious benefits of having one solid figure that you can depend on, that your country can turn to and say, hey, Do you have the answers to my problems? I can see the general appeal to that. And for most Americans, we live in a one of the most fundamentally advanced societies in the world in terms of how it is that we look at human rights, how it is that we look at systems of government. So it's probably kind of, I can see how people in America would be taken aback by the idea that having a president forever. But I wouldn't go as far as saying El Salvador has seen as much, how do you put it, as much progress democratically as, let's say, the United States. So I can't really say whether they're in a position to really benefit from having a strong man, because that eventually turns into some kind of authoritarian, some kind of dictatorship, which has been seen all across Latin America over the past 100 years. So I'm not entirely sure whether it'd be a good play or not, but there sure are benefits in some respects, and probably an equal amount of detriments on the other hand.
Okay. What actually I just thought about something really. What are your thoughts on how to maintain a certain ideology or a certain system that's set in place, like so that the next, upcoming administration stays kind of the same? Like, how do you keep that intact? How do you keep intact also like morality and values across the board when it comes to the transfer of power from one leader to the next?
That's a that's a that's a tough
Yeah,
cookie.
I've thought about it. I'm like, okay, the USA, right? There's there's the Republicans, there's the Democrats, okay, whatever. But at the end of the day, there's always like there's certain missions and certain tasks, right, that have to be completed. I'm sure that they have on hand an agenda that when a new administration comes in, they pick off on the next, leader, regardless of their political beliefs. So I'm just interested, I mean, anyone that's watching this right now, if if you have any idea, maybe you work in some sort of department for the government that you're in charge of, making sure that the transfer of power, happens smoothly. I'm interested in that topic. But what are your thoughts? What would you do to maintain certain things?
Well, you mentioned something that I'm not gonna lie, like made me kind of cringe, and it's the idea of ideology. And take it a step further, we're talking ideology and transfer of power in the same sentence. So
Uh,
the issue being, we have a current system of government, call it country X, has a current system of government with a particular leaning, and if they believe in it so deeply, they call it an ideology. It becomes an ideology, whether they call it one or not. And then the question is, how do we get a successful transfer of power, a democratic transfer of power, um, to a new leader with potentially a new ideology? And so there's a little bit of friction there because chances are, if you voted for the new guy, you either really didn't like the old policy or you are somehow going to protest against the new policy, the new ideology, if you will. So I would honestly say ideology has no place in any kind of successful transfer of power. I don't think it has any real proactive, productive place in any healthy democracy. Um, but no, I'm just kidding. There's no but there in my mind. I'm trying to play devil's advocate. Um, but how do you ensure a successful, transfer of power? Shoot, we live in the most advanced, democracy in the world, in my opinion, and we still can't get that right.
yeah.
So I'm not entirely sure what a good prescription would be, but I would probably start with culture. So if you have a society that's highly invested in, ideology, whatever it may be, you're going to have a problem trying to get people to adapt to a new way of thinking. Um, so you would have to have a culture that is aligned, to certain principles, to certain values, that they hold certain ideas above the rest, and that they can point to a true north, and that everything short of that is, can be looked at as a form of a tool. It's a tool, and it either accomplishes a task or a goal in pursuit of that truth, of that highest order, or it doesn't, in which case you put it aside. Um, and in a situation where you're about to have a new leader, I would hope that whoever the new leadership is builds upon whatever it is that the last leader left behind, even if it was against what it is that you're looking for. Like, I would hope that a new leader can separate the good from the bad and try to just build as opposed to spend their time destroying. But again, I think a lot of that has to deal with, the constituent culture of the people.
Do you think like setting something in place where, like let's just say for example, um, you're a world leader of a country
Ah,
and
terrible
you're
idea.
now you're now you're now wow, that's hilarious, man. I can't stop thinking of like just different scenarios going in my brain, like, if this were true. But yeah, so if you were a world leader, right, what laws or controls can you set in place that would prevent certain tasks that are agreed upon by the majority of the country to continue on? So, like, for example, let's just say they agree on, upgrading all the train systems in this country, right? Everyone agrees on it. They put it up to poll, it was, popularity was like, off the roof. 80% of the country agrees, they should invest taxpayer, money to invest in the train system. Here comes a new world leader, you, and you're like, nah, I want to change that, and I can because I'm the leader of the country. Do you think there should be some law or something in place, some control set in place where it's like, no, the majority of the people agreed on this, and just because you're the leader, you can't change this. We would have to put it back up on the poll, and people would have to again vote on this.
Yeah, it's a
Or,
conversation of
or
checks and balances. It entirely depends on your system of government. Obviously, in a dictatorship, this is not a
I
question for
mean,
debate.
but presidents still do it, right? They do executive orders, and yeah, it has to go through Congress. But like the thing is, like, how about the people, right? Do they
Right.
have
I
any
mean,
say on
that's
that?
even in our own country, in the United States. I mean, the solve for that problem is having a legislature that is representative of both a democracy and a representative democracy or republic, if you will. But you know, the issue is that you're going to have problems with both. So if it's a pure democracy, then it's mob rule. So if you are a new leader, if I'm a new world leader and I walk into a direct democracy where everybody votes on the individual, uh, individual topics, then I run into an issue whenever I want to change direction and it goes against the will of the people. Sorry, excuse me. Cut that out. But what was I saying?
But you know what? I also thought about something. If it were up to the people, it would also take time. So imagine like every single time a new leader would come in and say, "Hey, yeah, the majority of the people wanted this, but I think we should do this." You have to bring it back to the people. People have to go to the polls, assuming, the majority. Some people, I would like to think the majority would vote, but some
But the
people don't like
majority
going
don't.
out to vote. Yeah, they think about it. You have to go out. Some people have to work. If they could find a way that it could like, it's, they can make it like an app on your phone that's secure. That's another thing, right? That app would probably get attacked nonstop, right, by foreign countries. I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure. But if they could find a way that they could actually make it super secure to the point where, its integrity is there and, they can't really alter the votes. I think, it would actually promote people to vote versus like, actually getting up. People are becoming technology dependent now, and people don't have time or don't want to, get up and, go to vote or mail it in, right?
But I think you're
Um,
missing. I think you're missing like there's a big elephant in the room, which is even in a democracy where people have the right to choose and vote on whatever they want, in a pure democracy, even where you get direct representation, your vote counts towards the issue. Um, the people voting aren't necessarily the best people qualified
yeah,
to make that
yeah,
decision.
it's true,
Um,
yeah.
like you can have a million people out of put it this way, out of a million people, you can have all million vote for one answer. That doesn't it makes it the most popular. It doesn't make it the best
Yeah, it doesn't make it
option.
right too. But it kind
Right.
of shows like it kind of shows the record of where your people stand, right, as well.
Well, then at that point, your political leader, your world leader at that point, they're a figurehead. They're not
Yeah.
really doing much. They're a leader in name only, um, a representative of the people. But it doesn't really matter in a system where the people get to directly vote on all the issues. Um,
Yeah, and also like not everyone is a subject matter expert, right? So they want to have their best interest, in voting for something like, like if they want to get rid of something and it's something that, could benefit a certain group of people, but the majority of the country doesn't qualify on that topic, and so, they're going to vote no, and then, it doesn't get passed, and then the group of people that actually needed that are not going to get what they need, and so,
right.
so
A well informed public is a very tall order, even with modern technology. We
yeah.
have access to the world's data at our fingertips, and we still spend all our time, looking at TikToks as opposed to learning about issues that actually matter.
Yeah, so TikTok, man.
Oh, all right, make a
This is
left turn.
there's a no, you brought it up, man. We have to talk about this. So
Ugh.
TikTok is something that have you seen what's going on, man? There's a whole bunch of protesters that are going on they are going to Washington D.C. protesting about that they shouldn't ban TikTok. I think they're actually paying. They said they're paying creators to actually go out there and protest TikTok.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, it's in their best
Yeah,
interest.
but they proposed something. It's called the Texas. Damn, I forgot the name of it. It's the Texas something. But they proposed an idea. It's kind of nuts, where basically they would um have their own data centers hosted in Texas through Oracle. And Oracle would have the right to see the source code and see all the traffic that goes through everything. And they would be able to control what's actually displayed as well. I might be wrong on that part, but it was in kind of like that. It was kind of like they're able to control the information that's displayed to the American people. So I found that super interesting. The CEO of TikTok, which surprisingly doesn't even let his children watch TikTok. I think because he said they're not old enough or something. So I mean that tells you something, right? And here I think yeah, I think you have to be like 13 years or older. I might be wrong on that, where you have access to TikTok. Of course, there's parental controls and stuff, but come on, man, kids are smart. They can get around that shit.
Yeah, it's unenforceable.
Yeah.
What do you think is the most likely outcome for TikTok given the current climate?
I man, they're not. I don't think they're gonna ban it. They banned it at the government level, and because there's a lot of I think it's confirmed actually, man. The intelligence agency has confirmed that that they're like basically harvesting American data. I don't know what the hell they're doing with that, but they're also able to influence us in a way because they're saying that the things that they display in the Chinese community are like um like things that are beneficial to society, like science, math, and all these other things, and versus here if you're like scrolling through TikTok. Of course, it depends who you follow, but from what you can see, a lot of creators, a lot of content creators, what they do instead of creating content that's beneficial, um, they do like dances and
TikTok dances.
yes,
Hit
it's
that. Hit that
it's art.
TikTok.
Yeah, okay, it's artistic, but is it beneficial? You know what I mean? Um, Maybe I don't know. Maybe it's moving, artists forward. Maybe they're creating new moves or something. But overall, it's not really
What's the
helping
value
society
add?
here.
Yeah, I'm not seeing the
Yeah,
value add. and especially
So
in.
that's
All right, so go ahead.
yeah. So so let me answer your question. So to answer your question, I see that they're not probably going to ban it. Maybe at the government level, if they do get this proposed plan passed, then I guess we'll have more control. Oh, and also they're trying to make a separate American-owned company because right now I think it's BitDance. I think that's what owns TikTok, which is
The
Chinese
parent
owned.
company.
Yeah, the
So they
parent
want
company.
a
So they're
divestiture and just have that
yeah,
company
just like
basically just.
separate. Like they just kind of say like, oh, the American, all the viewers of America, we're gonna host all your servers on America. You have control of your data, and we are no longer affiliated with that company. All the, all the income that happens is just gonna stay within, America. I don't know. I don't know how that's gonna
Yeah, just
work,
like,
but
so what, the company would basically just like fork the code, and then the original TikTok persist in China, and then this new version of TikTok in America would be some other version of it, but fundamentally serve you the same content in the same way, but the underlying infrastructure is held by American companies and
yep,
under American oversight.
yeah.
I don't know. I don't see that happening. I'll keep it a stack.
You think it's gonna get banned?
I think it's most likely to get banned. If I had to make a prediction, I'm gonna say it's gonna get banned.
Do you think it's a good thing if it gets banned?
I quite frankly don't care. I'm not a TikTok user, but I mean, I'm a big YouTube Shorts guy. I'll be honest. I already
Yeah.
got as much as I need, but I don't know what the international, IP laws are in terms of what would stop a company in America from coming up with something similar or
Yeah.
becoming a
I
direct
was gonna
competitor to
yeah,
TikTok.
I was
But
gonna say that it might actually benefit because now there's if you think about it, there's an opportunity for someone to come up with a new idea, a new TikTok, right? There's a market for it now, right? The market was lost. I mean, the market wasn't lost, but the service has been lost. So someone has to come up with their own version of TikTok, even though there's like shorts and reels and all those other things. Either one thing could happen is that pre-existing American-owned versions of TikTok, like reels and shorts, might become more popular, or someone might just come up with a whole other, version of TikTok.
I think it's going to get banned. I don't see any kind of mechanism that the government could implement that would somehow, like an auditing feature, or not an auditing feature, but like an audit
Yeah.
that says, hey, how do we make sure that this code has been forked properly and that the new code and nothing is going back to to China? Like, we don't know where this data is going. I don't know what kind of list of compliances there would have to be in order to successfully check that box off and say, hey, the data that we have on Americans about Americans stays within America, and that the parent company and or just let's call it TikTok Prime doesn't have their claws in here somehow, either through a back door or through some third party data agreement.
Yeah, that's why they're trying to host it on Oracle
I think it'd be a whole
on
lot
their
easier to
cloud.
just kill it
Yeah,
from
I
Congress's
think so
point of
too.
view.
Yeah, you're definitely right. Yeah, there's a cost to that, right? I mean, it might benefit Oracle, right? They might come up with some sort of deal where they're gonna have to pay Oracle to, build the infrastructure. But yeah, that is
There's a
true.
lot of
It
liability.
might be just too much.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
liability on Oracle's part, saying, "Hey, I'll do that part." I'm not sure that would really work out in their favor anyway. I don't think the juice is worth the squeeze.
Yeah. So talking about the whole, BitDance, China owned social media platform. I saw something crazy today, man.
What you see,
So I
Doc?
was, I was going through Instagram, right? And they captured a small conversation of Putin talking to what's the guy? Xi Jinping or some shit.
G, President G.
Yeah, President G, the freaking leader of China, bro. So in the conversation, they have the president of China, or leader of China, what the hell they call him, prime minister, or whatever they call him, talking to Putin. And in the conversation, the person filming, they're able to get some of the voice recording. And basically, the translator that's next to the president of China is like, "Oh, we're going to continue together with our partnership, continue our agenda for the next 100 years." And he's like, and they shook hands. He's like, "Take care, safe travels." And the China guy, he went to the China president went to the his limo and he drove off. So that was pretty crazy, man. It makes you wonder, like, what agenda have they had in place that they're talking about the next 100 years?
China thinks long
Or is
term.
it just more of a, yeah,
China's
it's
trying to figure
insane.
out where it sits in the next paradigm of the world order. That's all it is.
And he I mean, he did he change the law in China where basically he's just the permanent leader of China, or how
Oh
did that
yeah, like
go?
I forgot what he called it, but it's basically president forever.
I mean
Yeah,
that kind of like, just to bring it back to the naive guy. I mean that could happen over there too if
right, and
power
that's what I mean.
corrupts.
Like that's the ultimate strength, or the ultimate strength. Um, that's the ultimate strongman kind of scenario. Democratically elected, kill off all of your, or either kill off or just eliminate all of your competition one way or another and make them
Yeah.
unviable, and keep the democratic elections open. But the only name on the ballot is me. Kind of sketch,
And dude,
but free.
we're talking about China, we're talking about Russia, we're talking about Nayib Bukele, El Salvador. What the hell is America doing? What's Joe Biden doing?
Yo, what is our commander in chief doing? El comandante.
What is he doing, man? El comandante, bro. El jefe. Like, what is he doing, man?
I don't know, man.
What do you think we should do? What should we be like? What should America be doing right now?
I mean, we should have done what we should do what we should have done a year ago, which is put our dick on the table and sit everybody down and say, hey, you're gonna do this and you're gonna do that, and this is the way it's gonna go down. For Russia, you're
Prior
gonna
to
go
the
home.
Ukraine war?
No, I'm not even talking about prior to the Ukraine war. Like this war has been a long time coming. We had 30 years to
Yeah.
prevent this from happening, and we messed up and on a bunch of different fronts. Not to remove any kind of blame from Putin for doing what he
Do you
did,
think that we saw that coming? Do you think American intelligence knew that there was going to be a war?
for sure.
That Russia was preparing?
Yeah, this is not new.
Yeah. You know, yeah, you know what's crazy? About 2 years, not to put my friend on blast, I'm not going to name him, but one of my friends is an investor in a certain region of Mexico, right? That he's into the whole Airbnb thing. He noticed about a year and a half ago that there was several wealthy Ukrainian people moving in, like several months and stuff. And it was crazy because then 2 months later, Russia declared war and they started, trying to, you know, take over Ukraine and stuff. So it's kind of crazy how it seems like the wealthy people, because the people that were moving over to that region were wealthy. They were buying properties and they're like, they didn't want to say why they're staying there. Oh, I like Mexico, the country's amazing, blah blah blah. Surely, after the war was announced, my friend that's an Airbnb investor that has properties down there, he was like, they opened up and they're like, yeah, we knew the war was gonna happen, and we got first word. So it's kind of messed up, like how the wealthy, like knew prior to everyone else that the war was gonna happen. So I guess follow the money. I guess that saying actually goes in the situation.
No, that's valid. You should
Yeah.
always follow the money.
Yeah, so all this talk about, Russia, China, and all the other countries we spoke about, well, El Salvador. I think we mentioned the world leader of Colombia talking trash, about what El Salvador
I don't
does and
care about
stuff.
none of them. Let's talk
Damn.
USA.
Yeah, what the hell is USA doing, bro? Like all these other countries are making power moves. What the hell is Joey doing, bro?
He's eating his prune juice. Let me be the first to say it. Like, come
Damn.
on, man. Asleep at the wheel.
So what do you think he should be doing? Do you think he should be out there, having conversations with other world leaders, putting
I
his you know
think
what down?
I think he should put his dick on the table and tell Russia
Yeah.
this is over. Tell Ukraine go home, and drumroll please, dismantle NATO. I think that's going to be the punchline.
Dismantle NATO?
Dismantle NATO. NATO was established to counter the threat of, well, the Soviet threat.
Yeah,
The Soviet threat
yeah.
ended in 1991 at the end of at the final end of the Cold War. And ever since then, it's caused more issues than not. We're paying for the majority of it, and an attack against one NATO country invokes Article 5 and the whole world goes to war, which would inevitably, I mean, at the current level of technology we have, would utterly decimate the planet
Yeah,
if we crack
but
nuclear
now
nuclear.
now that you mention that, like the way I see that is that if we get rid of NATO, I see other countries just creating their own other alliance, and then as countries, get together, especially if, people remember, and we have a lot of, I guess, we have a lot of bad history with a lot of the world, right? We're
Yeah, is
kind of
lonely
known
at the
to.
top. Anybody who's made it to the top of
No,
any
so
respective
what
empire is
I'm
going to
what I'm
have a
trying
whole
to
bunch of
say
people who
is
don't like them.
no, but what I'm trying to say is if NATO gets, it gets abolished, everyone does their own thing. What might end up happening is that all of the other countries that remember, like, hey, the U.S. came in here, they did this, and that. Oh, they did that to me too. Okay, let's get together. Boom, boom. Next thing you know, you have a superpower all together, jumped up and stuff, and they might be prior allies of NATO, right?
It would still
We
not
no
be in
longer
their best
have that.
interest to be aligned against the United States. I mean, it's not like if you disband NATO that somehow we don't have allies left in the world. We still have
I
a
was gonna
lot
say that,
of
but you never know. For
allies. You don't
now,
know now. I mean, there's a bunch of countries aligned against us now. Do I think it would
yeah.
result in a whole list of new enemies? No, I think it'd be the same face of the old enemies. But if I'm only saying disband NATO as a thought experiment from the perspective of over the past 30 years, how many acquisitions or how many new additions to NATO have there been made? I don't even know the number off the top of my head, but let's call it more than one. And let's call it more than one in the direction of Russia, who perceives that as a threat. And in order to
Yeah.
reclaim some kind of land and some kind of sphere of influence, they're taking the preemptive step of invading a sovereign country of Ukraine. And something tells me that's not going to be the end of it. Because as long as they perceive NATO as a threat, they're going to continue to do that. With that being said, I don't like being in the current position where we are openly contributing and participating in a proxy war and clearly picking sides, knowing that at the end of this rainbow, it could be the very end of all life as we know it. And people are being very casual with that. And I don't think it's worth it.
Mm.
I'd much rather nullify the situation, broker peace between the two nations, and not leave it in the hands of Xi Jinping or any other world leader, any other number two or number three person who's looking for that top spot. I think Joe Biden should be the one to sit down, have this conversation, and put people where they need to be and give them what they need to hear.
So you
But as
don't.
of right now,
Oh, so I continue.
I don't like where the current trajectory. I don't like our current trajectory as a planet. And what's next? Are we going to arm Ukraine to mount an offensive into Crimea so that they can reclaim it? Doesn't seem like a good idea. If we're playing by conventional warfare rules, Russia does not lose in this scenario because it's got a big red button that it can press. And it wouldn't necessarily be pointed at us, but it would be pointed at Ukraine, and inevitably it would elicit a response from us. So the end game is the same regardless of who he points it at. I think all eyes and all guns get pointed back at them, all guns get pointed at each other, mutually assured destruction. Like, I can't see a way out of that. I don't see an off ramp with the current situation that we're in, where it's pretty.
Yeah. Yeah, but
And I don't like the idea of Xi Jinping being the guy that's going to say, hey, I'm going to settle this. I don't trust your intentions.
So that's another thing. Yeah, it seems like China's now gaining a like power where basically he's coming up with an influence, right, to other countries and proposing solutions versus like that's basically where we're known for, right? The USA is known for creating peace treaties between other countries and everyone else, going along with it. But it seems that China's stepping in, like they did in Iran and Saudi Arabia.
Well, it was our place after World War II. That was kind of America's role in the New World Order, is we are going to secure the waterways and ensure international trade. And as long as you can trade with whoever you want, you don't have to fight for resources. You know what I mean? Like if you don't have oil in your country and you want to trade, you don't necessarily have to go and invade into another country. How about you just trade for the oil? And so that was kind of our part. And so it fell upon us to broker that peace between warring nations. But we were trying to put an end to the whole empirical warfare. The World War One, World War Two, that's enough. We said no mas.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it led to a whole bunch of situations where maybe, damn, honestly, we're gonna have to pause that. Some gunshots outside.
Really? I don't think that was gunshots. Was that gunshots?
Nah,
Oh.
nah, worse. Shit was dumb close.
Bratata.
Shit was dumb close.
Yeah, what was that though? What was the sound?
It's fireworks.
Oh,
So we're back.
yeah.
Josh, what role does America play in forming the New World Order?
What role? It seems like they have
What
no
role
role
are we
right
gonna
now.
play?
I don't. Well, it
Which,
seems like we're backing off. We're backing off on everything. It seems like China's now is having a bigger influence on what other countries do now, man. People are going along with it. We're
so
losing our role
why?
in the world.
Do you think that's on purpose, or do you think that's just the result of poorly run administration, or all right, maybe not a poorly run administration, but a failing domestic policy, or not a domestic policy, a foreign policy?
Yeah, it's definitely. I think it's a failure of domestic policy, and not only that, I think we haven't really been involved with the world other than from what I've seen Ukraine, right? And what's going on with Russia. But I really haven't heard anything about, anywhere else in the world.
Oh, we're involved in a bunch of places, but the common theme is that we're pulling back in Afghanistan for
Okay.
20 years and
Yeah.
pulled back.
Well, yeah, we also did that, yeah.
Um, but I don't know. I mean, it almost feels like ineptitude at this point. Like, why are we still playing this game? Why are we still playing this game with Russia? We know what they're sitting on. I'm not really trying to call that bluff, and I'm not scared of Russia. What I am scared of is two inconsolable parties who decide that they're hell bent on, you know, locking horns with each other at the cost of everybody else. We were talking about, or democratically solved problems and voting directly on issues. This is something that none of us approved of. And our participation in an open proxy war with, against Russia is not something that the American people voted for.
Yeah.
And I get the rah rahness of it all, and I get the downtroddenness of Ukraine, but at the same time, I feel like the American population is they're not prepared for what comes next if we continue going down this road, and they're writing a check that they can't catch. Our run rate
So you
for
think it's
this
just
war,
better to just pull out?
yeah, I think this is a situation that's better handled locally in their own sphere of influence. But the problem is we can't get involved without involving the entire war or the entire world, which Russia will inevitably perceive as a threat. I don't know how many more economic sanctions we can put on them or any of their partners without further alienating them. We need people to come to the table and agree to a solution. And I really want to know what our current administration is planning on doing with that because it is a long time before we actually vote on a new president. In terms of any day, my man could drop the button, that being Putin. I'm not
Yeah.
trusting it. That's a lot of butt puckering time. I ain't got that kind. Mm-mm. I don't need any more gray hairs on account of the world ending. I just think it's a bad look. I hate being this critical about any individual, and I like to say that I'm not a fan of any politician, but I am pro president of the United States. I don't care who's sitting in the chair. Um, I care that the chair is filled, and I care that the chair is doing what it needs to do for not only the good of its own constituency, but for the free world and for those that are not free. I feel like the president of the United States kind of has a responsibility to do the right thing in this situation, and the right thing is to find off ramps as quick as possible. And if it means appeasement, then it means appeasement. But the point is to get this world away from the brink of nuclear war. And I don't see the leaders of the free world stepping up to do that. I see them picking sides in a proxy war, a dangerous one at that.
Do you see that like if we do keep pulling back, like what's gonna happen with all of like let's just say they disband NATO, would we still have the right to have like bases all around other countries and stuff like that? Like how would that work?
Legally
And if we
speaking, I don't think so. We would have to be invited by other countries, which we are now. We don't just like show up. I mean, with the
that's
exception of war times, for the most part, there's an agreement between that sovereign country and us in order to have troops and or any kind of American presence there. But in a world where we disband NATO, sure, we're still going to have allies who want that, and it's still going to be in their best interest to have the world's most elite military apparatus somewhere close by within arm's reach. But it's also our prerogative to say we don't need to be involved in any of this. Um,
yeah,
I think globalization has taken its course. I think it worked for a while, but it clearly didn't do what it was intended to do, which was prevent world wars. We are literally at the doorstep of World War III. And we can't blame it on anything else. And there's nothing there to prevent this from this. So it's like globalization, in my opinion, has failed.
wow,
If the whole point was to make countries economically economically dependent on each other to some extent, because if they have mutual interest, then they're somehow less likely to go to war with each other. Okay, explain China, explain Russia. None of these things make sense. Under that doctrine, none of this makes sense. And if it did make sense, then you should be able to show me a clear path, a clear off ramp that de-escalates this whole situation and puts us back on in the direction of prosperity for all and peace for all. But I'm not hearing that from anybody. So we just need to kind of admit that this version of globalization is kind of coming to its that book is kind of coming to a close real quick. And what are we going to do after that?
yeah,
Which is why you're seeing China vie for jockeying for position, and Russia butting up with China because they're looking for long term success. They need to find a way to do it without U.S. involvement because it doesn't look like we're trying to bring them to the
yeah,
table.
yeah. Do you see them being successful?
Who?
China and Russia?
No, no, I don't.
Yeah, me
No, I
neither.
don't. China's importing over 40% of all of its food.
Wow.
Good luck. Good luck. Good luck trying to feed your people if you decide to back Russia into a world war.
Where does the majority of their food come from?
I have no idea.
Pacific Islands, I'm guessing?
It's not necessarily their food. It's the inputs. It's the agricultural inputs. It's like the phosphate, the nitrogen
Oh,
for the
yeah.
fertilizer. It's that kind of thing. It's the potash. If you need to grow rice and your rice is dependent on I forget what it is. Is it potash? I think it's dependent on potash. But if you don't have it and your rice doesn't grow, you got a
Yeah.
whole whole group of billions of people that can't eat. You know what I
Sheesh.
mean? So it's like, where are you getting all your oil from? Oh, you're getting all your oil from Russia. Great. Well, Russia's not allowed to get any kind of, what is that? I think there's the European countries kind of came together and said, hey, we're not going to afford any insurance policies on Russian vessels carrying Russian crude. And if you don't have an insurance policy, then you can't dock at a European port.
Oh wow.
So you're kind of screwed in that situation. So I think what they're doing right now is that they're tying up barges in the middle of the ocean, tankers, super tankers, getting the oil from one place to another ship, and then bringing it roundabout. But what you inevitably have is, you know, a trade route that's highly vulnerable to attack.
Yeah.
And Peter Zion really does. He goes into this in his book and in his talks that he's been given lately. But it doesn't take much for one of you know one of many motivated groups of people to say, "Hey, we're going to go hijack a Russian tanker or blow it up."
Damn. With no insurance
What does that
policy.
do to the forget the level of ecological disaster that it would be? Just talk about the oil production in general. That happens, oil production halts for a day. 2 million barrels get backed up. It halts for 2 days, another 2 million. They can't hold that oil forever. It gets backed up into the permafrost where it freezes. When it freezes, the water expands in the pipes, cracks all the pipes, and they're back to the Stone Age.
Wow.
Now China gets no oil. Now nobody else gets no oil. Venezuela doesn't get oil. Nobody gets oil. So it's like it's a highly volatile situation. And Russia tying their salvation to China doesn't seem like it's a winning strategy to me because they're also on the lifeboat too. So I don't care how big both of your countries are combined. I don't care how many, conventional forces you have combined. At the end of the day, if you can't feed the group of people that you need in order to sustain that apparatus, it's all going bye bye.
Wow. That is insane, bro. I never thought it through that deep.
I'm not. I'm not. I'm not wishing this on the world. I don't think it's a winning strategy. I honestly think the adults in the room need to wake the fuck up and come together and sit at the table and say, "Yo, enough is enough." And you know what? If you are head honcho, if you are, commander in chief, you are the leader of the free world. I think it's your responsibility to come, sit down, and bring everybody to the table. You should be able to snap your fingers and say, "Yo, we're gonna have this conversation. We're gonna have it now."
Yeah, I agree.
And
All
enough
right.
is enough.
Enough is enough. All right, guys. Well, just make sure to tune in next week. I'm just wondering, dude, like the way we're living, what the hell's gonna happen next week, bro?
Stay tuned for season 3 of America.
America. All right, guys. So just make sure to like, subscribe, and share this with your friends. Um, we're gonna continue bringing you value, and yeah, just stay tuned for more. Peace.